Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for practice owners and leaders, where we are obsessed with how to build a successful practice and get a life too. Hi, I'm Chuck Blakeman, and we're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time, get off the treadmill, and rehumanize dentistry by giving everybody their brain back. Before we get started today, just a quick reminder to register for the Get Off the Treadmill Summit in Irvine, California, February 14 through 16. It's coming up fast, and since we keep these very small and intimate, I don't want you to have to wait until the next one. Go to gotsummit.com, G-O-T-T with 2 T's, gotsummit.com, and sign up today. I'll see you there. Today, I'm working with Carrie Webber. She is the Chief Communications Officer and co-owner of Jameson, a dental management, marketing, and hygiene. They help dentists and teams become more productive, more profitable, and ultimately more fulfilled in their practicing lives. Carrie is a contributing author to multiple publications in the topics of dental business leadership and team development, as well as a presenter of a lot of topics to dental professionals nationwide, and she's a good friend. Welcome, Carrie. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you so much for having me. I'm beyond excited to be here.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have a woman on these things. I was just whining beforehand how we don't have women in dentistry, especially leaders in dentistry. So we're clamoring to find the ones we can. We're thrilled to have you on. So let's hit this today. Today we're going to talk about core values and your practice culture. I think these are so important. These are things that the dentist and every other small business thinks, nah, that's for large corporations. We don't need that crap. Core values and your practice culture. So give me kind of your opening salvo, shot across the bow on why you think this is important.
Well, there are so many reasons why I think it's important. Number one, as a fellow business owner, I'm living proof of what putting true core values into place can do in terms of decision-making and leading a team toward a vision. And I know that you're a big proponent of core values and vision, Chuck. And, we work with dentists all across the United States. And I talk to dentists constantly, week after week, coming and asking questions and seeking solutions for the practice that they are currently living in versus the practice that they want for themselves. And a lot of times it's lack of clarity of even what they want, why they do what they do. Having that clarity and that understanding, there's so much indecision. And I also feel like, you see a lack of shared core values. There's a lot of symptoms of that. If you're experiencing extreme turnover in your team, if you have plateaued and there's a lot of resistance in forward-focused progress, if you're trying to implement change and you hit roadblock after roadblock with your team and you can't seem to make progress, I feel like there's a lack of shared vision and there's a lack of shared values to move the practice toward that ideal vision that the owner has for that business.
Yeah, it's so true. And the fancy business word, and I don't like fancy business words, so I make fun of them. Alignment is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
If you can't get people to do stuff, it's because they're not aligned with your core values, your core culture, or you don't even have them articulated. You have them. And that's the thing people don't understand is if you decide not to proactively take the bull by the horns and create core values and create a core culture, you've got one. It's going to happen to you instead of because of you.
Yes.
And you look around and you wonder what's happening. It's because you have a default set of values that have just happened to you over time because you haven't let it happen. My friend, my best friend in the world, John Heenan, lives in Belfast, Ireland. He says, if you don't have a vision for your own life, you'll become part of somebody else's vision. And that's what happens to a lot of dental practices is they invite 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 people into their practice. And all of a sudden they feel run by their practice. And they wonder, well, how did I get out of control? It's because you didn't articulate what you wanted at the very top level. What are your core values and what is your core culture? And so when people came in, they brought theirs. And and it became sort of a mix of everybody there fighting for the top word, and the most the strongest personality wins. So it is so important for us to do that. I think it's more important for us as small businesses in dentistry to understand our core values and our practice cultures than it is for IBM, because they've been doing this for 100 plus years, and you add 3 people to IBM and they kind of get shoehorned into whatever's going on. But you add one person to a team of 9 or 10, and that's 10%. Imagine IBM adding 10% to their practice in one day, or to their business in one day. It's a radical thing. So we need to know who we are, and if we don't, we'll become some part of somebody else's vision. So how do we get this stuff? Let's start with core values. To me, that's the top. That's the top of the heap. What would you suggest that people do to begin to find their core values as a practice?
Yeah, great question, Chuck. I think it really depends on where you are right now in terms of your practice culture. If you feel, as you take a look at your business, your practice, if it's toxic, you may not want more of that, right? So it may be that's an individual leadership exercise of where do I want to go? What are the values of my team, of my practice culture that are important to me in terms of how we take care of our patients, and how we take care of each other, and how we work with each other and honor each other in this practice. I think it's important for all leaders to do that. If you have a good team already that you want to help you and be involved in the shift of culture, or continuing toward a practice vision, maybe you're recasting a new vision for the practice and you've got a great team on board, to have them be a part of the process of identifying your core values. For example, I'll use our own company as an example. We have an amazing team. I'm very proud to be a part of this team. But my husband and I, as owners of the company, had new vision that we wanted to cast for the company of where we were going. But we wanted our team on board and involved and a part of that. We wanted to honor the culture and the legacy of what was already existing in the business. So we asked them to participate in this exercise with us, identifying those key descriptive words about the company that was meaningful to them as individuals, as members of the team, and that they felt was meaningful for our clients. From those that everyone shared, we identified the ones that were most consistently used and identified among all of our team members, and those became our core values. We really honor them, and we honor them in every decision that we make. We honor them when we're hiring. We honor them when we're firing. Does this person align, as you said, with that little power word, align with our values of this company, and will be on board and in alignment and very clear of where we're going together and honor those values? So a team can do that too. But if you have a toxic team and you're ready to move forward, you as a leader need to determine what values are going to be important for you moving forward and express that.
I think there's a couple. Yeah, sorry. There's a couple of really important things I want to stop you on there before we get too deep into how to do this. One is, if you have a toxic culture, by the way, that is a set of values.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, there is a set of values running around your practice which has created that culture. And a lot of times the values are things like, well, I want to keep the peace. I want everybody to like me. Or I just wanted to do dentistry. I didn't know I needed to run a business as well. And this thing should run itself.
Yep.
Aren't these people... there's all kinds of things that come into that aren't necessarily me being mean or nasty. It's more by omission.
Yeah.
I found that because dentistry is so highly technical, and so there's so much education involved in it, a lot of technical fields tend to have default cultures where they're not taking the bull by the horns. It's not something they intended to do. The focus is on the technology. Let's be clinical. Let's be a really great artist and do incredibly beautiful margins and all that great stuff that happens in dentistry. And I just build it and they will come. If I do great dentistry, they'll come. But we ignore all the humanity of it. And so it happens to us. We wonder, how did we end up with a toxic culture? It's one small decision at a time that we just let slide because we were too busy doing dentistry. So that's the first thing. And the second thing you said that's so important is get the team involved. This needs a reset. If you've got even little bits of things that are toxic, you've got to do a reset. It's not about, okay, we'll gradually figure some stuff out. No, this needs a cataclysmic event. When we graduate from college, when we get married, we have resets and we have these ceremonies and rituals. You need to have a whole day of ceremony and ritual and reset. And then you need practices that come out of that will change where you're coming from, because otherwise you'll just slide right back where you came from. But the biggest piece of this is, we talked about this before we started the podcast, input equals ownership. We call it distributed decision making through distributed leadership. How deep does that go in your organization? How much input do people have in decisions? That's how much they'll own them. So you can't come in and reset and say, okay, here's what our culture looked like. Here's what it's going to look like. Everybody get on board. Not going to happen. You've got to play the role of facilitator and bring them all on board, because input equals ownership. So those are two really important things to start with. Get a reset to get that toxicity out of your culture, and do it with everybody.
Yeah. And, Chuck, I would also add, you said it was, it's one small decision at a time that leads you to wherever you are today. I will also like to add that every decision you decide not to make is a step. So whether, you take action or not, you've made a decision. You have taken an action. So to remember that as a leader, if you know where you are is not where you want to be, and you don't do anything about it, you've made a choice. You've made a decision.
We talk about it all the time. Yeah, we talk about it all the time. Yeah, you've made that decision. And we talk about all the time with our dental practice owners. It's more actually the sins of omission than it is the sins of commission. Too often it's, I'm too busy doing dentistry to want to mess with this. And so we call them out on it. We call them peacekeepers. We need to be peacemakers. It's the peacemakers who do well in business. I'm willing to have border skirmishes so that I don't have world wars. And so I go after the small things, one decision at a time. And most of us are just saying, well, that doesn't matter. That's a little thing. And then you do that 100 times. You wonder how you got where you are. It's because one little decision at a time you didn't make.
And, I think having clarity of what values are most important, are those pillars of the practice, is important. It doesn't mean that other people, if their values aren't the same as yours, that they're bad values. It doesn't mean I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, we can't work together. What's important is, if I want to go somewhere, I need to be really clear as a practice owner where I'm going with my practice, with my team, because I can only take my progress so far as an individual. But if I have a team that is in agreement and really feel within themselves that alignment of core values, and I'm really clear on my vision, they're on board with that vision, they have buy-in for that vision, we're going to go so much further, so much faster, and in such a healthier and happier way together than I could ever do alone, trying to drag people on a journey they don't want to be on. And we always like to say, if someone's not on board with the core values that are most important to our organization or our practice, and they're not on board with the vision that practice is going, when would we want to know that? Now is good. Now is good, because I want to go somewhere. I want to make progress. And I want a team that believes in that vision and believes in where we're going, because that makes work life happier. That makes their professional lives happier. And it helps us be more successful in the long run.
But to your point, Carrie, it comes from people, from the practice owners and the leaders, thinking not top down and bottom up, but center out and edges in. It's what's coming out from the center to the edges, but most importantly, what's coming out from the edges of the practice back to the center. In a great practice and in a great business, we're finding that when we free people up to make decisions on the edges of the practice, that comes back to the middle, and it actually informs the middle what should be happening in the whole practice. We've been taught through the factory system hierarchy thing to do it just the opposite. We impose stuff from the top
Mm.
down, and we just assume it's going to happen. But people aren't running machines anymore, and they need to have their brains back. My next book, the working title right now, is Rehumanizing Dentistry by Giving Everybody Their Brain Back. And the way you do that more than anything is distributed decision making. That is a value. The first value that expresses is that everybody has a brain, everybody's important, and everybody can have input. And if they do, then you have the whole of us going in the same direction rather than me trying to hit the ball and drag Charlie.
Yeah. And I think, something else for everyone that may be listening and thinking, okay, all right, I need to get some core values going. What you're going to find is if you have that exercise and you all get in agreement, these are the things that are most important. This is what makes us us. And this is why our patients love us. This is why we do what we do. This is what's most important. And then you can look through every element of your practice and ask that question, are we honoring these core values in these systems? And if the answer is no, then you have identified immediately an area to focus on, to uplift it to the level of expectation and values that are most important to the organization as a whole. And I think, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you remind me of when we put our newest set of core values together a number of years ago. We sort of went back to the drawing board and went for a couple of days, and we spent about 4 hours, invested about 4 hours in redesigning our core values. And we came up with our 5 core values. I'd strongly recommend you have 3 at most, unless you have an acronym. And ours actually made an acronym, or we would have made them something less. But those 5 values 3 months later caused us to actually let one of the people go who helped come up with those 5 values.
Yes.
Because once we had them utterly clear, that clarity began to walk around our business, and we began to ask our business, where is this not aligned? And one of the surprises was this person who was part of this and agreed to these core values, she's aligned with 4 of them, but that 5th one, not aligned with that. And you think, well, 80%, come on, you're too harsh. This is the one decision at a time that we just talked about. If you let that go, then somebody else gets to violate one of the other 5 values. And pretty soon we got 15, 20 people violating. They're all violating 1 out of the 5 values. And then somebody decides they want to violate 2 out of 5. Well, that's not worse. It's just a little bit worse. So you can see where it's a descending, it's a self-fulfilling descending prophecy of negativity, and you end up with a toxic culture. So once you figure out what your core values are, that would be one of the things that I would advise next is these are the inviolate standards, the foundations, the pillars of your practice, and you cannot allow for any slippage on those things. I love the way Netflix goes after this kind of stuff. That one of their statements is, and it just shows their commitment to high standards. Average performance receives a generous severance package. So it's not about being good. It's about we're all sold out all the time, every day, and nothing less will matter. So these values matter. Like you said early on, we hire based on these, we fire based on them, we buy copiers based on them, we decide whether we're going to buy a second location or build a second one. It's all based on how does this develop our core values and help push our vision forward. So I'm all on board. Let me shift gears a little bit here real quickly. We don't have a lot of time. How to core values and your practice culture. I'm not much of a traditionalist, but this culture, the traditional definition of culture really works for me. The word culture, the definition is a set of norms and values that are A, widely, strongly held, and B, widely shared. A set of norms and values that are strongly held and widely shared. So first you have to have the values, but then by that very definition, your culture becomes just living those out.
Yes.
We say it all the time. You don't create a culture. You simply live out what you believe. What do you believe? And I think that's just important, because when you get those core values figured out and you actually begin to align with them and you make the foundations, that is your culture. Just keep going. But what's your thoughts on culture and how that works in concert with your values? That's my prejudice. You maybe have a different
No,
view.
I completely agree with you. And I think to me, and you teach us, you speak to this, Chuck, and there's this really great book called Making Money is Killing Your Business. And it talks about these things, right? And it talks about, in my opinion, if you're really in touch with your purpose of your practice, then your core values should be that externally shared action that represents the purpose. And a lot of doctors will call us, I need new patients, I need a marketing strategy, and all these things. And they're wanting something to help them stand apart. Well, guess what? This is what makes you you. And it's really the DNA of the practice, because if you're really actualizing core values in your practice as a team, you're not just identifying words of how you honor each other internally as a team. It's how you honor and care for your patients. So your patients' experience every time they walk in the door, every time they call your practice, every time they're in your chair, every single time, they should be experiencing the actualization of your values, what's important to you, because that's going to attract patients that those values are important to as well. And those are your ideal patients, the ones that show up to their appointments, that say yes to treatment, that finish the treatment, that pay for the treatment, that refer their friends. And that's what actualization of purpose and core values looks like in a practice.
That's a great way to put it to bed. That is your culture. When you have those core values, you live them out in everything you do. Mm-hmm. It's one little decision at a time, and those decisions accumulate, become your habits, which become your practice character, and your practice character becomes your destiny. And that's what people see when they come and they sit in your chair, is your core values. So I think it's a great way to wrap this up. Well, Carrie, how can people get a hold of you? You speak, and you speak on these topics in dental business leadership and team development. You've got the marketing and hygiene stuff that you guys are doing. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we have a great team of advisors here at Jameson, and we do speak and provide continuing education, and we also work with dentists and teams in their practices, seeing this come to life for them through their practice and their systems. You can visit us at jamesonmanagement.com. That's JAMESON, management, all spelled out. Or you can call us, 877-369-5558. If you want to have a conversation with me, reach out to us through the website or by phone, and I look forward to speaking with you about your practice soon. Thanks, Chuck.
Well, you bet. This has been fun. We'll look forward to having you back. We got a lot more to talk about. Thanks, Carrie.
Can't wait.
If today's topic got your juices flowing, remember to register for the life-changing Get Off the Treadmill Summit in Irvine, California, February 14 to 16. Go to gotsummit.com, G-O-T-T with 2 T's, gotsummit.com, and sign up today. I'll see you there. If this podcast was helpful, please subscribe by computer or by phone, or connect with us at www.gotsummit.com, 2 T's, G-O-T-T summit.com. That stands for Get Off the Treadmill. We have those summits quarterly for dental practitioners only. Or connect with us at www.chuckblakeman.com, or email us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Let's get off that treadmill. Let's get into the participation age. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. Thanks.